My name is Amy Otzel, and I served in the Connecticut Army National Guard with the 118th Medical Battalion, Headquarters Support Company, as a military mental health counselor. We served in Operation Iraqi Freedom from December 7th, 2003 until March 8th, 2005. We were the medical battalion in charge of all the healthcare in the theater of operations during Operation Iraqi Freedom 2. Our primary mission was to provide mental health services to our battalion, which was made up of about 500 plus servicemen and women, primarily nurses, doctors, combat medics, medical staff, support staff. The secondary mission, which really was the largest part of my job, was to provide area support mental health services in a troop medical clinic and anywhere where our troops were. So during my time there, I went to about 17 or 18 outposted sites, so I was traveling constantly. I did also provide services to DoD civilians, contractors, as well as prisoners, high visibility detainees, and local nationals. Right away, when I had entered into Kuwait, I was issued a Gerber knife along with my M16 and my 210 rounds of ammunition to protect myself from the potential threat of military sexual trauma, which I had not particularly heard much about. As the mental health person, I had done sexual harassment briefings a lot within my unit. However, the idea of military sexual trauma was not one that I was particularly familiar with, but became very familiar with it firsthand. Like I said, we were issued these knives, and the thought was kind of like, what am I supposed to do with this? And then also thinking, like, I haven't even gotten into the combat theater yet. I was in a relatively safe area. Being with the medical unit, we had about 40% female and about 60% male, so that's pretty large for a military unit. So we also could not go anywhere without having two other battle buddies with us. So you really did not want to be that person in the middle of the night who had to go to the bathroom because you'd wake up two other people to escort you only about 20 to 50 feet away. So you really didn't want to go to the porta potty. The idea that, you know, when you were in the combat theater of operations, they were incoming and bombs could kind of drop anywhere. It wasn't a particularly safe kind of trek, but it really was difficult because I just couldn't understand, if we were fighting together and fighting a war, how the enemy could be within our own organization, within my own ranks even. And having to make that decision to know that you would defend yourself against the potential threats who were, I mean, the enemy was very ambiguous. It could be anybody. It was just a really tough thing to kind of comprehend. And I don't know that I particularly got that while I was there, because you just had to do. It came afterwards that some of that started kind of coming together and making more sense, and also getting a little harder to deal with. I was medically retired from the military in February of 2010. Since November of 2007, I've served for the Department of Veterans Affairs with the Vet Center program as a readjustment counseling therapist. So it's a really important role for me to have transitioned into, being able to bring my experiences into my profession and helping others. However, it was not easy. Part of what I really had to focus on coming home from a war zone was my own readjustment. Having had academic degrees in education prior to my enlistment into the military in psychological health and behavioral health, and then also earning a master's level education, I thought maybe I would be exempt from some of the impact of combat stress, but it really was not the case. When I had returned home, it was extremely difficult starting to process what I had been through and how could I be feeling the way that I was feeling and serve our returning troops. I went as a professional to a VA briefing at our local medical center to learn about the newly returning combat veteran from OIF, OEF. And as I was sitting there, I realized that who they were briefing on was me, that I had all these issues, I had all these concerns, I had all these struggles, and what was I going to do about it now? You know, I at the end of the program, I was crying, and kind of, it was just the impetus for me to really say, wow, okay, it did happen to me. And really, I think that was where I started regenerating my sense of humanity. It was like, I'm not exempt from this, I am human, and I've got to kind of deal with some of this. Having gone through my own readjustment, I think really helps me have a common understanding of what the people whom I meet in front of me day to day in the office are experiencing. And I do tend to do a little bit of self-disclosure to really help that new person understand that we're still in this together. When troops come back to America, they're still experiencing the world as if it was the combat zone. And moving through that and relearning how to experience the world is really important. So I think everything that I've been through certainly speaks to what I can bring to my position in the Vet Center. And the Vet Center program, the values and the mission are just so closely matched with that of the esprit de corps, the military morale, that it's just a really good place to be. And working with mostly other veterans and combat veterans is really important to that sense of cohesion and how we can provide these services to our veterans.